Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks very much for joining us this afternoon for a brown bag, which is on the thematic sector of agriculture. We're going to have two presentations. Well, first, let me say I'm Valerie Davide. I'm with Resource Mobilization Partnerships. I'm here with my team, Stefana Cheban and Jihan Hakimi. We will be starting in just about 1 minute. I wanted just to say we've got two presentations, one on the Africa Fertilizer Financing Mechanism, and that will be our first presentation. It's going to be done by Marie-Claire Kalihangabo, who's the coordinator for the AFFM. And then afterwards, we will have a second presentation, which is on the Africa Fertilizer, sorry, not the Agricultural Fast Track Fund, excuse me. And so I think without further ado, I will hand over the mic to Marie-Claire. Marie-Claire, can you hear us correctly and can you get your presentation loaded?
Yeah, good afternoon, Valerie. I'm going to download it right now, share the screen.
Perfect, thank you so much.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone from where you are. I'm pleased to this afternoon to present the another special fund, which is within the Agricultural and Agro-Industry Department, the Africa Fertilizer Financing Mechanism. The Africa Fertilizer Financing Mechanism was actually conceived during the Africa Green Revolution Summit. Through this Abuja Declaration, the African Union member states committed to an initiative to improve agricultural productivity by providing financing required to remove bottleneck on the use of fertilizer. So AFFM was actually approved by the Bank Board of Directors and Board of Governors as a special fund in 20...
Claire?
Yes?
We don't see your presentation.
You lost it?
No, we don't see it. Could you try again?
Oh, okay, okay, sorry. I hope you can see it now.
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. So I was saying that the Africa Fertilizer Financing Mechanism was approved by the Board of Governors in 2008, and it became operational in 2015 when the financial threshold that was required of $10 million was achieved. So AFFM became fully functional in 2018 after the appointment of the coordinator in November 2017 and the recruitment of consultants that helped in implementation of activities, and also after the required documentation such as operational procedure manual was approved by the Board of Directors. And the FFM strategy for 3 years approved by 2018. As you can see, the fund size is currently $13.7 million, and we are targeting 300 million as the required size to have a significant impact in the sector. FFM can actually use grants, guarantees, and loans since it's a special fund. and the floor of 250,000 euro and the ceiling of 10 million euro was set for this special fund. And AFFM lifespan has been expanded to 2032. As you can see, we have different donors and partners. The African Development Bank has contributed into the mechanism for $6.5 million. The government of Nigeria contributed 6 million with a pledge of 10 million. AGRA has contributed 1 million. We have the government of Tanzania that has pledged 2 million, but has contributed $200,000. We also have technical partners. We have listed some of them here. And we have also industry partners who are actually helping AFFM in implementing activities. The WAFA, for example, is the West Africa Fertilizer Association, which covers, for example, 80% of fertilizer industry in West Africa. The AFFM objectives, the AFFM overall objective is to assist the African member countries in increasing agricultural productivity within the context of the African food security and food security vision and the sustainable development goals. One of AFFM primary objective is to find support to create an environment that mobilize investment needed to achieve the target mandated by the Abuja Declaration, which is to reach 50 kilograms of nutrient fertilizer per hectare in Africa. So we still have a long way to go regarding this target. Since today, as of today, the average of fertilizer used in Africa is about 17 kilograms per hectare. The AFFM we focus on several activities which can be divided into components, facilitation and capital investment. Facilitation activities will remove some obstacles that impede investment in the fertilizer manufacturing, distribution, and use. The second type of activities, which centers around the financing, the capital investment, promotes fertilizer supply and use for the African continent. However, the Governing Council of AFFM has, in view of the size of the fund, they have opted to focus on two main activities. One regarding the focus on providing support the provision of credit guarantees and other financial solutions all along the fertilizer value chain. And the second activity being the support of policy advocacy and targeted technical assistance in different governments that are committed in addressing key obstacles that fertilizer supply chain faces for the moment. As you can see, eligible beneficiaries for AFFM, we have a wide spectrum of beneficiaries. They can be any regional member country, any institution working in the territory of any regional member country, or any international, regional, sub-regional agency or institution concerned with the development in Africa. This is why for the reason that the fertilizer sector is actually a bit evolving and it was necessary to not create limitations that may not, in selecting appropriate beneficiaries and organizations to work with or support the development of the sector. Regarding access to special fund financing, AFFM actually will build its pipeline of projects mainly from eligible response from regular call for proposals. And the pipeline can also be from proposals submitted directly by eligible recipients, which are initiated by the AFFM Governing Council in response to identified gaps and that need to be addressed that were not even addressed during within the submitted call for proposal. But also the pipeline can be from identification missions and proposals emanating from normal AFTB operations. After receiving the pipeline project, we have the procedure manual that have set the timeline to how to do the deal, to go through the process from receipt of a proposal to approval, and which is between 42 to 59 weeks. But in real time, it can be within the timeline, or it can pass the timeline depending on the transaction. Actually, for the moment, AFFM has projects that are either grants and guarantee. So regarding the effectiveness of guarantees, we were able to fit in within the deadline, the timeline. But regarding the guarantee, it was a bit tricky. We had 10 more weeks to have the guarantee to become actually effective. However, because this grant and the guarantee are linked, our implementing partners were able to initiate, based on a grant, to initiate the pre-guarantee activities such as identifying the partners, putting in place monitoring and evaluation and instrument, etc., etc. Also, as you can see, the AFFM governance structure is quite simple. We have the AFFM, the bank board of directors, which has the primary role as a general responsibility as general operations of the mechanism in accordance with the bank policies and procedures. The AFFM Governing Council has the responsibility in determining the general direction of AFFM, setting the AFFM vision, and also setting priorities and objectives and milestones of AFFM. AFFM Secretariat takes over day-to-day activities under the direct supervision of the Director of Agriculture and Agro-Industry Department, and overall supervision of the Vice President for the AHVP complex. The setting, the AFFM, level of approvals have been set based on this governing structure, and they vary from the director to the VP up to the board of directors. I will ask my colleague Pierre to continue with the next presentation.
Thank you, Marikia. Good afternoon, everyone. So you just saw what Marikia presented to you So now we're going to show you our track record, showing you that AFFM doesn't exist just on paper. We talk to talk and walk to walk. So we started by producing knowledge instruments to share with everyone, and we have 6 knowledge products that are focusing on the fertilizer industry. We often publish newsletters, especially from the HVP office. I'm sure some of them have read them, and as well as articles that we have published. And because AFFM has become so far the subject matter expert, not just within the bank, but I could say throughout the continent. So we're always in demand, and as such, we often participate in forums and conferences where we share knowledge and help out with policymakers throughout the continent. And one of these conferences that we actually had was our own. So last year, from September 30th to October 1st, AFFM organized the first ever Fertilizer Forum at the bank. And we were able to bring in more than 230 participants. We had about 5 ministers of agriculture. We had directors of PITD. We had presentation from PIFD. We had several commercial banks in attendance, regional institutions. We had the biggest companies from fertilizer companies from West Africa that together have more than $1 billion of sales throughout the region. And this was a moment for us to really showcase what AFFM was all about. And everyone at the bank, including partners that came from different countries, were able to see what AFFM was able to do. Well, it was not just about talking. It was not about doing PowerPoint presentations. We also have activities on the ground. And currently, we are managing two credit guarantee projects in Nigeria and Tanzania. So from the funds that we have available, you'll see how many farmers we're able to impact with just a little bit of funds. And you could imagine after that how much more we can do when the bank backs us up and provide us more fund to do even more work. So in Nigeria and Tanzania, we're going to impact the lives of more than 700,000 farmers. And it's a revolving credit guarantee, $4.5 million. That's what we're using there. And you could see on the screen what we're doing in both countries. You could imagine what would have done in Nigeria if we had more money. It wouldn't just be 200,000 farmers, it would be millions. But from the funds that we have, this is the type of work we're able to do. We are now in the third quarter of some of these operations in Tanzania, and we're getting some reports. We'll share with you at the end of the year. You could come back to us when you need more information. We also put together a value chain project, which is targeting special crops. You could see the partner that we're doing this with. It's OCP Africa. And for this one, we are only using $2 million. So you see that with just $6.5 million, we were able to impact the lives of more than 1 million farmers. Because this deal with OCP, we're going to impact the lives of 430,000 smallholder farmers, including 104,000 farmers. In Cote d'Ivoire, our work is going to help in the rice sector. We're going to help increase the rice by 30%. And in Ghana, it's going to be rice and maize, excuse me. And what makes it nice here is the fact that in this intervention, especially in Cote d'Ivoire, we ended up also presenting and using mobile money with a major bank in Cote d'Ivoire. And this is the first time this is going to be done between aggregators and farmers to ensure safety when it's time to pay farmers. In Ghana, as you could see, we are working with 50 aggregators. So what this approach, what it does is it created an ecosystem to ring fence and take away risk, and so that banks and other institutions could invest with us, so that they understand that through this approach, where everyone has a contractual agreement at every level, they play their part. The farmers get the inputs, they get technical assistance to produce, they get technical assistance to harvest, thereby reducing any side selling risk. And on top of that, they have access to market. They have readily available buyer to offtake their commodities, and that helps further mitigate risk. So we're able to do all these things, and now we're moving forward. So moving forward, we need to build more partnerships. So that is both internally and externally. Internally, for instance, all the time we're getting requests to intervene in fertilizer blending plants, whether it's Zimbabwe, Zambia, or other countries. But as you saw from the beginning, we don't have the financial wherewithal to invest in a fertilizer blending plant. But if we work with PITD, we can easily do the due diligence. We know the value chain. We know who would be buying the fertilizer from the blending companies. We know who would be buying the fertilizer from the importers, as you saw in the example with OCP. And so if we can get this type of partnership with PITD, PITD can use funds to us to even get more value with their own funds. And similarly, PIFD, we tried to bring together a project whereby we would use existing funds that the bank has in local or regional banks to create a fertilizer window aimed at SMEs, so that we can help them get additional guarantees to buy the fertilizer that the farmers need for agricultural productivity and food security. So because we need to do all this, we also have to do our resource mobilization, again, in-house and externally, because as we're building partnership internally, we're also looking externally at other funds, sovereign funds, to get the necessary resources that we need so that we can expand our activities, not just in those 4 countries that you saw, but anywhere else throughout the continent. So that's what we have for you to show you what we've been doing with the little money that we've been able to raise from 2006 and became operational in 2018. So you could see that we could do a lot. And if we can get the bank support, to mobilize resources, we can continue to expand activities within the next 4 or 5 years and make our mark in the fertilizer sector, fertilizer industry in Africa. Over to you now, Marie-Claire. Hello, Marie-Claire.
Sorry, I was saying that, thank you, Pierre. As you have understood, AFFM is quite young. We have 3 years old of operations. And we are also a small team, as you can see here. We have myself and Maria, who's an investment officer, Pierre, the who is the fertilizer sector specialist, and he's the one who presented the track record for AFFM. We have Yaovi, who deals with administration and finance. We have Amel Jendubi, who's an AFFM team assistant. Jerry Remogo, who's the communications officer. And Sandrina Gomez, who's currently on maternity leave, and she helped us with business development. You will understand that the special fund, we have to work with consultants and project staff. So we have actually 3 project staff, and the rest are consultants. We thank you very much, and we look forward to your questions. We look forward to your collaboration, and we will welcome any question that may allow us to give a bit of clarity, but also any comment that may help AFFM to bring the fertilizer sector to the development. Thank you very much.
Marie-Claire and Pierre, thank you very much for that. I think it's quite exciting to see AFFM be operational, because it was a long birthing process, let's say that, for it, but it's obviously quite important. Increasing the yields for farmers is quite an important bit of our own strategy within the agricultural space. So I thank you for that. I'm just going to ask the team, do you want to take questions now, or do you want to continue with the presentations and we take questions all together towards the end? Jihan?
Oh, you mean your team, Valerie? Yes,
sorry.
If we can take questions from the audience now, that would be perfect.
Okay.
We have 20 minutes. Thanks.
Okay, fantastic. So I do see that there are a couple of questions in the chat function. We can start with those. Pierre and Marie-Claire, do you see the questions in the chat function? We've got something from Kidanao Aberagizao and from Kola Dairo.
Yes, thank you, Valerie. I see the first question asking why AFFM took 10 years to become operational. Actually, the reason is that the African member countries had agreed to contribute into the mechanism, which could not happen immediately. So from the time it was approved, so the required threshold to declare AFFM operational was achieved actually in 2015. So that was 10 million. And as I have mentioned, now we have 13 million, but we are now working hard to mobilize resources to not again now we have invested most of the funds. Actually, now we invested more than 10 million into projects. So we have just less than 3 million for future commitment. So, but that's the simple reason, because there was a team that was required to mobilize resources. They did their best. So that takes that long. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Why don't you go over to the questions in the chat function, Marie-Claire? Can you see the chat? I'm sorry, not chat, excuse me, Q&A. Excuse me, Q&A.
Yeah. I will ask Pierre to answer the first question. Pierre, you are muted.
Thank you. Kidanoa, yes, the yield increase is specific to this project. So the question, I don't know if anybody saw it, the person is asking whether the yield increase in Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire is at national level, or is it specific at the smallholder farmers that are targeted. So this is for this program. is specific to this program, because as we quickly explained, this is a program that has technical service providers in it. So the technical service providers are able to assist the farmers with input, with gaps, so that they can apply the input at the right time, and also help them throughout the production cycle and post-harvest. So the yield increase is specific to this program. It's not for the country at national level. And you see the other two, Marie-Claire? Kola has two questions. Can AFFM provide guarantees in specific private sector projects, not programs? Well, the second project you saw is actually a private sector project. It's between OCP Africa, which is a private company, as you probably already know, the largest phosphate manufacturer in the world, and also Africa, based in Morocco. And it's a way for us to help with productivity and helping the private sector push required fertilizer in those countries. And I also add that the good thing with this program is the fact that it's not just fertilizer, as you could understand, or if you need additional information, it also have seeds. So one of the seed providers in Syngenta, it also has the aggregators and the importers. So all the stakeholders in those projects are private sector. The other one is, do we consider programs within the bank's IOP? You want to handle that one, Marie-Claire?
Okay, thank you, Pierre. Actually, the AFFM projects are for the moment standalone projects, but also we've been working with our own department, AHI, to get involved in any value chain project. And for instance, we've been helping one of the value chain projects in Burundi. So as the fertilizer component is also considered within the same, within the projects that are implemented using the bank's IOP. That's what I can answer. And we are also actually looking forward contributing into any other agricultural value chain project. But again, as Pierre has mentioned already, we would also want to work with PIFD to extend credit guarantees or other lines of credit that aim to facilitate access to finance to fertilizer companies. And that cannot be done with our own resources. So this is how the projects we presented already are within FFM funds. Those PM has talked about are being discussed and would be done with banks' IOP. I hope I answered the question.
Yeah, those are the, oh, there's another one now.
Okay, thank you for the presentation. My question is, would you contribute to a project that the bank is not financing? We have few at AIF. Of course, if resources allow us, because I think I have partially answered this question, because the project in Nigeria and the project in Tanzania are within AFFM funds. And for instance, we are also trying to discuss with, for example, with Afrexim Bank, trying to mobilize resources to finance the supply chain of fertilizer in different countries. So any support that may be obtained, I have already mentioned that we have just less than 3 million for future commitment. So that's not enough to invest. But if the discussion we are taking now to mobilize resources materialize, then definitely we'll be happy to finance and contribute in any other project that respond to AFFM mandate. The next question from Bushaib. Could you please briefly explain your strategy approach in fund mobilization and partnership building? For the moment, what we are working on now is the AFFM strategy for next 5 years, from 2021 and 2025. If we did not have the coronavirus, that pandemic that has put many things on hold, the strategy could have been approved now. And in parallel, we are also developing a resource mobilization plan that we have to bring to the approval of the AFFM Governing Council, and then to the attention of the AFTB management. And based on that AFFM strategy, we base that AFFM strategy to build the AFFM resource mobilization plan. And we will base on those to approach different potential donors. And for the moment, we are also working with firm, as there is one of our key focal point to help us in resource mobilization. And we have actually started discussions with different potential donors already. And as I mentioned, we are currently discussing we are in serious discussions with Afrexim Bank. Building partnerships, definitely, this is mainly based on AFFM strategy. We have a number of partners we have already in our pool of partners, but based on that 5-year strategy, we have also a strategy to build partnerships which are quite strategic that may allow AFFM actually to have more resources to invest in the fertilizer sector, but also bring the fertilizer sector to the development. I mentioned the WAFA, that's one of the strategic partnership. If you know what actually the sector knows, or what are the needs of the sector, then you need you're able to support them properly. Thank you. I hope I have answered your question, Bulanoa.
Thanks very much, Pierre and Marie-Claire. Sorry, people who aren't talking can put off their mics because there's a bit of an echo that comes back. Okay, fantastic. Very good. So thanks a ton for that. I don't see any further questions, and I think that we are within our time limit. So I'm going to thank the team from the AFFM. AFFM, exactly. And now we'll go to AFT. There's just a sea of acronyms. So the Agricultural Fast Track Fund. And I will ask for whoever's presenting to please go ahead and get their presentation on the screen.
So Alfred is presenting, but Monsieur G is going to do the slide for him.
Okay, so Alfred, welcome. And I think we need just to go first. Your mic isn't on. We can't hear you.
It was muted by the organizer, by the host.
There you go.
You hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. Good afternoon. And if you can just work on getting your presentation on the screen, please.
Pardon?
We can see you perfectly. Thank you. We just wanted, when you're ready, to get your presentation on. Thank you.
My presentation is on the screen.
Not
Hello?
yet. Not yet. Mhm.
Do I upload?
So you need to have it.
If
Yes.
I go to share screen, first of all, you
Yes.
have to open your presentation. You go to share screen, then you double click the presentation you have opened.
Okay. It's like I'm lost. Share screen, okay.
This is one thing you can do if you, okay, good. I
Yes.
think it's coming.
Yes. Hello, am I there now? Hakim,
Yes.
can you see me? Okay. Okay, I'm there.
Yes, perfect, Alfred, perfect.
Sorry for the initial hitch that I faced. My screen just started hanging and went off. So I had to ask for technical support to get myself back. I'm sorry for that. Well, this is Agriculture Fast Track Fund, AFT. The project coordinator is Dr. Shian Jonas. He has asked that I make this presentation on his behalf and on behalf of the AFT team. I'm Ifeanyi Alfred Ojiako. Of course, the team is made of so many other members, which we have to see in the course of the presentation because there is a particular slide for that. Of course, AFT, the website is there, aftfund.org. The objective is to develop and advance a pipeline of bankable food security projects that support Africa's agricultural transformation agenda. We see that as we also move forward in the course of the presentation. The content is there. We are looking at, we will look at the trust fund overview and whom the donors are. And of course, the objective, we have to see the what makes up the objective as we move forward. Areas of intervention, the eligibility of beneficiaries or those who are eligible to benefit from AFT, access to development fund financing. We look at the governance structure, the track record, of course, some impact of the program and the team constituents. But this slide is unavoidably congested. There's traffic there, but just giving us one or two information about one overview of AFT. Of course, the program was set up in May 8, 2013, and is a fund of 23.68 million, supported by the AFT donors, three of them, which we see as in the course of the presentation. And of course, to benefit from AFT, targets projects or agri-based projects that are above $1 million US. Usually, the fund or the grant is based on calls or concept notes. Of course, we have opportunity for thematic calls, but this definitely has not been used because of the donor stance on that. Usually, they will prefer competition. And the area of intervention, of course, is agriculture project preparation activities, mostly in form of studies. Our program is grant-based. There's no loan or any other thing, it's just grants. And we have some eligibility criteria, which we can see in the course of presentation, but there are basically 6 of them. These are the 6 basic questions that must be addressed and understood before any potential grantee. Any potential grantee should be able to even proceed to accessing our website or our activities. I spoke about the donors. We see that as we move ahead. And of course, AFT is 5 years now, 5 years plus, being set up in 2013. And of course, this is 2020. So that is 5 years plus some 18 months. AFT donors are the governments of the United States of America, represented by the USAID, the government of Sweden, represented by SIDA, and of course, the government of Denmark, represented by Canada. As we move ahead, we see that these particular donors have different stake in the fund. The USAID had supported the fund to the tune of $14.02 million US. Sweden, under SIDA, supported the fund to the tune of $7.8 million, while Canada had supported the fund to the tune of $1.82 million. And that gives us a total of $23.68 million, which AFT has worked on since inception to date, has been working with since inception to date. Objective, as I said before, is to develop pipeline of develop and advance pipeline of bankable food security projects that support Africa's agriculture. AFT seeks to fast-track promising agricultural ideas and businesses into bankable investments for uptake by the development financial institutions. It seeks to generate technical content for development of bankable projects. The issue is that this has been a very big problem. In fact, one of the issues that have been putting away potential investors in the agri-based projects. The initial hiccups that characterize agriculture-based projects. As a result of that, this program AFT was really set up to see how to ameliorate some of those problems. How to, it serves as a forum to pave way for penetration into the agri sector for those mostly the SMEs, Africa-based SMEs, who have who ordinarily would have had a lot of issues that we definitely, in most cases, push them away from continuing with the investments. So AFT tries to ameliorate these problems and to remove them in order to pave way for smooth entry into agricultural investment projects. I said before that the most of our activities are come in form of studies. So the areas of intervention and include that's here in this particular thing, we are talking about the eligible core activities of AFT. And we have the scoping assessments, feasibility studies, which in most cases include technical, financial, marketing, economic studies that will support agriculture investment. Have market research, market analysis, and marketing plan. Things that have to do with financial structuring, legal financial advisory services, including regulatory and tax due diligence. Issues like community consultations, product certification, environmental and social impact assessment, and others like giving providing opportunities for to give would-be investors way to be able to penetrate the hectic agri project environment. So AFT tries to put some studies, usually through consultants, working with service providers to support the grantee, who are the beneficiaries, to embark on these issues. Usually, we do not have direct contact or direct dealing with the consultants. The consultants work directly with the grantees of AFT, but AFT supports the grantees and provide technical assistance to see that the consultants do good work in order to benefit the grantees of AFT and see that the investment that about to embark on does not meet with problems and issues. For eligibility, we usually work with private sectors and as well as public sector operators in the regional member countries of AFD, FDB. We have projects in 10 countries. These 10 countries are those who up to today have been cleared and eligible to ask for AFT grant and get approval for AFT grant. So we are present in Benin, we are present in Burkina Faso, Cote d'Ivoire here, we are present in Ethiopia, Ghana, Malawi, Mozambique, Nigeria, Senegal, and of course, Tanzania. In all these places, we've been working with mostly private sector, SMEs. And of course, we also have some public sector SME, some public sector agri-based projects that are financed or that are embarked upon by the governments of some of these countries or the MDAs. So we also have some activities with the cooperative societies, agri-based cooperative and farmer associations, and of course, the CBOs. AFT project origination, usually, as I said before, we deal mostly with studies, and for somebody to qualify for these studies, eligible activities must include direct submission from DFIs. So some DFIs we could receive direct by design. This is by design of AFT. But as we move ahead, we see why some of these things have not actually been happening the way they were designed. Because by design, some entities, which include direct submission from DFIs, that have been welcomed into AFT. Normal AFT, FDB operations. Some departments and units of AFDB would have been qualified to receive AFT grants. But once more, for one reason or the other, this has not happened because of what we see as we move ahead. And general course for concept notes and course for full technical applications. This has been mostly, or by far, what has been used up to this day. And the reason is mainly the preference of the AFT donors. They want a situation whereby the beneficiaries of AFT grants will be competitively chosen. And they want this thing to be thrown open so that it becomes given to those who have projects that are described as quality projects. And we see that that's why the process has not been very easy, because it takes a lot of time to now screen from proposal stage to the stage whereby grants are awarded. And the design, the system is highly competitive. And we see as we move ahead that because of the competitive nature, it has not been very easy for all the countries to actually compete and get approval. But we thank God that as we are talking now, we've been able to support projects in all the 10 countries. But that is after some much effort has been made in form of going extra length, like promoting AFT activities through interaction in some of these countries that we might describe as disadvantaged in terms of producing quality proposals to get approval from AFT through the competitive application process. In terms of track records and achievements, as I'm saying that AFT is already present in in all the 10 member countries, all the 10 eligible countries of the fund. And of course, we've had approval. Approval has been received for over 63 projects at worth about 16.04 that is $1 million in under 5 batches. Over 80% of these projects have been successfully implemented, or some of them that have not been completed at the point of completion. And of course, cumulative commitment of about $20 million have been made in the fund to date. Disbursement rate is already over 75% in terms of achievement. We are working in as many as 17 crop value chains. In fact, over than that, because that's one of the issues with AFT. There's no defined limit now. So every aspect of agriculture, as we see in the area of coverage, every aspect of agriculture that has been able to, the sponsor has been able to convince the assessment team that they have something to deliver and able to back it up by quality presentation of a proposal to receive AFT grant. And at least 2 projects are now presently managed in each of the countries, at least 2 projects. And in terms of leveraging, AFT grant has been able to, AFT has been able to leverage more than $25 in every $1 grant it has provided to the grantees.
Alfred, excuse
yes,
me,
can
I ask you to try and wrap things up so we can save some time for questions, please? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. So I move to the next slide. We see that in terms, we have some challenges, and of course, some of the challenges include the time and resource constraints, as well as long time it takes to approve and give grants. And of course, quality proposals, which I said come from member countries, that one way or the other have tried to see ways of ameliorating in order to get everybody involved. And of course, the recent COVID-19 has its own imperative, its own problems, because it has led to a situation whereby some consultants could not be able to attend to their jobs at the field. Well, these are some of the remedial steps that we've been taking, including, as I said before, one-on-one capacity enhancement sessions and arrangement, and organizing MI&E visits and sensitization and consultative meetings and missions to the project, to the eligible countries. Moving forward, AFT, there is discussion underway, engagements to mainstream AFT into the core activities of the bank, because the donors, as we see, including the US government and Danida, they are already not coming up with a proposal to continue with the fund. and we may be rounding off, but there have been effort to mainstream this into the activities of the bank. And of course, solicit alternative sources of fund, as well as put strategy in place and put survey action in place to be able to document the impact of AFT, and the activities it has been able to do. Well, these are some of the examples of the success stories. Just to note here that AFT would be at the point of touching over 450,000 smallholders, 40% of which, and of course, 30% of which include the youth farmers. Our main project coordinator is Dr. Jonas Shiano, and the team works with long-term consultants, including my colleague, Odun Jai, who is the operations expert. We have Matthew and Agol, procurement expert. For M&E and data analysis, where our CCO, M. Kone, is the operations assistant of AFT, person who is handling some of the administrative issues. Well, for frequently asked questions, we can see this at the AFT website as displayed. And yeah, these are some of the eligible criteria. And yeah, the broad classification of the value chains we are supporting, from production to processing, infrastructure support and linkages, agriculture. Yes, these are some of the value chain types: livestock, crop, fishery, and all those. You see, in terms of crop, we are covering so many areas, both from aquaculture, fishery, horticulture, and even forestry crops. All of them are one way or the other undertaken by AFT. Here we have the roll call of the value chain. These are some of the field activities that AFT is undertaking. So thank you for listening. On behalf of AFT.
Thank you.
Hello? Okay.
Thank you, Alfred.
Thank you.
Anybody else from the team want to compliment?
Well, let me just say that I have listened keenly on this presentation, and it has been very wonderful. I asked Ifai to make this presentation because when it was scheduled before, I was to be a guest speaker in one international agricultural economics conference. So he has done a great job. Well done, Ifai.
Thank you.
Ifai, well done.
All right, thank you very much. I just checked, I don't believe that I see any questions now, but maybe whilst we're waiting for people to formulate their questions, I think it's really quite interesting, some of the statistics that you've presented. 40% of beneficiaries being women, 30% being youth, I think 75% disbursement rate, which are all very good numbers for a trust fund at the institution. And so I want to just congratulate you and the entire team for that. It's not an easy thing, I know. And there are some challenges that run across the trust funds, such as staffing, communication, and the like. Let me maybe ask you a question just about whether or not there exists any overlap between the Fast Track Fund and the AFFM. Sort of, can you imagine, let's say, a future where a consolidation, for example, of the agricultural funds happens within your sector, like what's happening now in the water sector? And what would be the advantage and what would be the disadvantage of something like that?
Well, if I understood your question very well, one thing with agriculture is that is a cross-costing activity. There's no way, for instance, somebody who is into production will finish production without having need for fertilizer. And of course, it cuts across even the operations of the AFFM, as well as what is taking place in other areas of in other units of the bank. But discussions are underway. There was a time the need arose to compile list of some of the projects of AFT and some of the projects of AFFM, and that request came from the AHI department, perhaps for integration into some of the activities of AHI, like the activities of other funds, other projects and programs being handled in the department. But that having been said, I think the way it concerns AFT is that most of the AFT activities, as I said before, are in form of studies. So when these studies are made and the grantees commence their core project, which the aim is to support, you see, they will now actually reach out. So I am saying that some of our farmers, some of our grantees who are into production, we definitely need to work with the AFFM. That will depend on linkage and how this how they understand what AFFM is doing. But definitely there is going to be a lot of cross-cutting issues and activities.
Sorry, to add on to that.
Yeah, if the farmers are linked to that.
Okay, just to add on to that, there is really complementarity between it with AFT, in the sense that, for example, there was, the Ghana government wanted to be involved in fertilizer, and we were talking to FMFC to see how best we can assist them in terms of preparation of the project document. So we assist, for example, somebody that is in the industry to be able to prepare the documents to raise financing. And the fertilizer organizations will also benefit from AFT to be able to raise funding. So we help them to prepare the technical reports. And whilst, the fertilizer unit will be able to assist them raise financing, which is complementary to what we are doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Modu, for that insight.
Thanks very much as well. Let's see, I've got a question in the Q&A. If I can also open up. But Kola, are you here trying to get some financing for your projects, it seems, huh? But that's good. I'm glad that you're making the rounds of the trust funds. There's a question from Kola.
Sorry, come again with that question.
Sure, let me, so you can access it on the bottom of your screen. You've got something, a little box called Q&A. If you click on it.
Okay.
I can help here.
Yeah.
I saw the comment that was made by Kola.
Okay.
Yes, please.
Looking at AFT as an unsung hero among trust funds. That is a perfect description of AFT in the bank. Very perfect description of the AFT. In terms of dimensions, in terms of varieties, in terms of coverage, in terms of number, you cannot think of any other trust fund at the bank that has done more than the AFT. But it's like what it's doing is not being announced. In fact, I have to struggle every time to say that even when it comes to the implementation of the bank's Feed Africa program, that has actually made the donors of the AFT to extend the fund the first time by 1.5 years. because we keep telling them that even in the articulation of the banks in Africa, that the work the AFT is doing is well known. So that is exactly a perfect description of the AFT. But let me digress a little bit to the question that Valerie was asking about the kind of probably integration of AFT and what they do at the AFFM. One thing I can say is that in terms of the AFFM is about fertilizer, and it is about increasing productivity of crops. This is perfect. This is one of the things that we are talking about, even in TAT, to make use of science, technology, and innovations to be able to increase productivity and production to be able to start meeting the food needs of Africa. But the AFT goes beyond this. The AFT is filling a gap, and that gap is the gap where small-scale SMEs in agriculture and agribusiness have not been accessing the finance that they need to be able to develop their businesses. And then these donors saw a window that if you can enable these people to be able to carry out studies, for them to have access to the technical content that they require, to be able to formulate bankable proposals, maybe that scenario can change. And that concept has been proven by the AFT. Recall that if I was talking about the leveraging of funds, commercial funding. So for every $1 that the AFT has so far given as a grant, it has been able to leverage an average of $25 in commercial funding. And this is a major success of the AFT. So beyond that, AFT supports things that don't have anything to do with fertilizer, except indirectly. For instance, we support meat production. We support livestock production. Of course, you can say that the grass, like bacteria, that you use to produce this livestock, you can fertilize it in that sense, yes. But that is indirect relationship. So the AFT goes beyond what is typically done under the AFFM. Thank you.
Hello.
Thanks.
There
Thanks,
are one or two questions there. With regards to Kola's question also, in terms of restructuring and assisting with the the environmental assessment, it's outsourced. Most of our work is outsourced to independent consultants, consultancy firms or individual consultants. And regarding the approach in terms of fund mobilization, most of the time, the fund mobilization in terms of raising financing is done by the guarantee. Although we do connect them in sometimes with the private sector side of the bank, and also we do tell them potential financiers. In terms of partnership building, we've been talking to both commercial and DFIs and FIs in terms of possibly partnering for them to finance our projects and also projects that they think may need AFT financing. We do partner with them for them to let us know what their pipeline is. So we do share pipeline. Thank you.
Thanks for that insight. That's the second arm of Kola's question. Okay. Listening. Do we have another? Hello? Hello, Hakim.
Hi. No, Jihan was just cleaning up, I think, the Q&A for the chat. So one of the things I actually wanted to ask to both you, that is AFT and to AFFM, one of the areas that can always be strengthened is communication. And I think you said it yourself earlier on in the presentation. We can, of course, have websites and the like, but what do you think that you can do better? This is, again, to both teams. What do you think you can do better in terms of communication, and what would it take for you to implement that?
Okay, Valerie, maybe I can start by responding to your question.
Sure.
Where I think AFFM was done actually our best in communication, because as you have understood, it has taken too long for AFFM to become operational. So it has impacted even the previous potential donor to invest into AFFM. And after 10 years and coming back, and after 3 years having projects on the ground, it's because we really put most efforts, not only in project preparations and implementation, but also by trying to communicate about AFFM. You have understood that we have not only provided, worked on documentation, knowledge products, but also we have participated in different conferences. We have presented AFFM in different webinars and forums, just try to inform the public, the private sector, government, that AFFM now is operational. Today we have a communication officer, and we have a quarterly newsletter that we share with AFFM pool of network. What we would love to do better is maybe to widespread all those knowledge products, even already within the bank. We have been so far been able to share some those knowledge products within the complex IHVP, and would love actually now to spread bank-wide. And this is something that would need support from communication department. But now we have projects on the ground, and the plan is just to communicate the success stories and the outcome and even what next we plan to do. So I think we've done our best. We still have a long way to go, but with support of different departments, even with firm, I know that we need to how to work with you on knowledge products that or work on the pitch deck that may allow us to mobilize a bit more resources. Thank you.
Thanks, Marie-Claire.
Yeah, okay. Let me just add on the side of AFT. Hello?
Yes, please go ahead. We hear you.
Okay. On the side of AFT, yes, we've made a lot of efforts to communicate our activities. And of course, that yielded much results. As I said during the presentation, from initially we were having difficulties with some countries trying to come up with best in terms of proposals in order to get projects. But we were able to overcome that. Hesitation and drive, interaction and engagement with these countries. And we work through our AFDB country offices to see that we reach out to the who is who in the SME and government circle in most of these countries in order to get them to participate. But because of the way it is designed, AFT really has been working to get quality project preparation documents that will enable these particular SMEs to have access to funding from the financial institutions. So moving forward, I think what we can still do better would be to see a way of being on the same page with some of these financial institutions or some loan-giving bodies out there in the countries. If we are working together, if it is possible to work together, design the project together alongside with the SME that needs the funding, it will be easier for some of these financial institutions if they actually understand and they're part of the development process of these proposals to pick them at the end of the day. Because some of the problems we've been facing is that, you see, these documents are there, but the banks will still be, in some cases, they will still need collateral in order for them to start looking at those proposals. But we are thinking that if these banks are to be part of the development of these particular documents, and they are part of it, they see how the thing has come up, and they see that is a particular document that is marketable, it may be easier for them to pick. And in the light of that, we're also trying to see, we were talking about synergy, about engagement between AFT and the agri finance department, sector of the bank. So the AHFR and the HI, to see how they can work together so that some of these projects, some of these documents, when they are developed, and it becomes a case of the SME looking for funding, they should be able to access a fund through some of the bank channels. So we are trying to see how these things can go together so that at the end of the day, we not come up with documents with studies reports that will be lying there in the shelf and frustrating the effort of the investor trying to get funding. My colleagues can also add one or two things they remember.
Thanks, Sophia, for that. All right, anything else from other members of the team? And at the same time, let me check out the Q&A. All right, looks like there's no further open questions. Though there is something on the chat just about this consolidation of the various ag trust funds. But I think it's just a follow-up to what I've said about what we're seeing in the sector. I'm sure that many of you might know that we are in the process of elaborating a new trust fund policy. And that trust fund policy will favor larger trust funds, both bilateral and multi-donor, and also introduce a minimum contribution. I think it was interesting to hear AFFM say that Tanzania had provided a 2 million pledge, but had only actually paid 200,000. And so under the new trust fund policy, though, well, actually, let me back up before it is, if it's a special fund, and I do believe that the fertilizer mechanism is, you would still be allowed to do that because the trust fund policy only applies to trust funds. But generally speaking, we're looking to go towards trust funds that are larger, that can achieve economies of scale. You know, in your own line of work, that it's very time consuming to, in fact, manage a trust fund properly. And we don't often provide the necessary staffing to do that. And so people are having to manage them sometimes as an additional part of their work. There's also been this idea that we can try a shared services or a platform approach to human resources. So if somebody needs, for example, an M&E specialist, you wouldn't take one for every firm that's in the ag department, but you might take one to service all the firms, all the funds. So these are a little bit of the ideas I think that are now percolating within the system. And it'll be really interesting to see, well, to find ourselves perhaps in a year's time, thinking about what has happened in the particular sector, what's happened with the policy, and how it is that we have adapted, I think, to a changing environment. All right, I think that I will probably then close. I don't see any further questions in the chat or in the Q&A. I really want to say a great big thank you to the participants, of course, who have spent the time here with us. I hope you found it to be useful and informative. To all the teams that are managing trust funds, we know that your work is not easy. We thank you for it, particularly for finding very difficult and scarce funding, particularly for things like project preparation, reaching beneficiaries that we normally would not be able to do with our classic African Development Bank group projects or types of instruments. Let me just hand it over maybe to the firm team, if there are any sort of final housekeeping things you want to share. The next brown bag session will be next week, is that correct?
The next one is in 2 weeks' time.
In 2 weeks' time, okay. So in 2 weeks' time, we look forward to seeing you again. We hope everybody stays safe wherever you are, and we look forward to seeing you then again in 2 weeks' time. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great rest of the afternoon. Thanks again to the teams.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.